All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thank you all. Oh, there is no crew that I'd rather be with during the dissolution of the American empire. So, yes, it really is quite an exciting moment for me, too. Thank you for being here. We're a live show. We are live 2 to 4 on the East Coast. Shout out to my East Coast brothers and sisters. And we are on from 11 to 1 on the West Coast. Shout out to my West Coast brothers and sisters. Yeah. And all around the globe for 2 continuous hours, you'll get some great information from not so much me, but from a couple of brilliant minds today. The truly brilliant David Cay Johnston joins for hour 2. And in the first hour, bottom of this hour, is the ninja on the law and economics. I'm talking about June Carbone. She's an author, professor, and when it comes to everything from the law, which you could consider front and center as this administration and regime basically ignore the law, all of that to the Epstein files, which she knows about. In fact, she has a very interesting take on the Epstein files, which I'm really anxious to have her share with you. From that range of topics to anything else that we can get to in the short time we visit with her, we'll get to all of it at about 20 minutes, I guess, bottom of this hour.
Yeah.
So,
and we have polls today. I'm super excited. We have ways to participate.
Yes. What's the poll, Kim?
We have a poll. We have 2. The first one in the first hour is a poll about whether or not you think a state should be able to sue the federal government over this ICE shooting.
Yeah, because Minnesota is doing that. It seems as though it's the only avenue open right now. So as this chaotic, aggressive, thuggish ICE maneuver continues to be aggressively pursued in the state of Minnesota, everywhere ICE shows up, they create trouble. They're thugs, straight up. They're undertrained, obese thugs. They are in no way qualified for any of these arrests, detentions, whatever. They are the worst of America. And these glorified nightclub bouncers and wannabe linebackers, they show up and they create trouble. And 7 of them detain a guy who's working at a Target store in Minnesota. It takes 7 guys, 7 of these huge dudes, to kneel on some guy's neck to arrest him. It's disgusting. I'm telling you, I've watched the video. We're going to share a few today because I want, obviously, the front and center issue is ICE and this lawsuit, and we'll have June Carbone weigh in on this because I think she can speak to the legalities of the state suing the federal government to stop this madness concerning ICE. But I've watched these videos in preparation for the show and trying to decide what videos, just in a broad stroke way, bring home the absurdity and the cruelty associated with this. And I was just saying to Kim before the show, you know, I've watched one of these videos like 7 times because I'm trying to figure out if there's a better angle. I've seen another one, et cetera.
It's so hard to watch.
It disturbs me so fundamentally. I've never, I mean, I guess, you know, Holocaust videos and some of the stuff, you know, out of Gaza and some of the stuff, I mean, out of, you know, you may remember the days of Syria and Syrian refugee. Some of these things are, you know, they're so viscerally disturbing. And some of the stuff out of America. I mean, I don't mean to, but I'm just grabbing examples of things that are so emotionally disruptive that it's hard to view them.
But
And
you can't not view them though. It's almost irresponsible not to view them because if you look away, it's like condoning it almost. Like you're just ignoring the problem, and
well,
we can't ignore it.
yeah, I mean, there are ways to look away. I mean, I didn't use this example, but if you can watch a slaughterhouse video,
Mhm.
then you don't have a heart. I mean, I'm a passionate believer in the rights of animals to freedom and to not be used in any way for entertainment, for our food, etc. So I'm already on board, is my point. But I can't watch a slaughterhouse video. I can't watch it. I'm so deeply disturbed by it, and I feel as though these ICE raid videos are adjacent to that same feeling, I guess is what I'm getting at. And all of this is in service of the question, should this even be happening? And I think most of you who are watching this show would say, no, it shouldn't be. I mean, this is utter absurdity. This is like these roving militias that you find in third world dictatorships. But that is what America is pivoting toward. And it is happening with an utter disregard for the law. And that's why I'll be very interested to see if this legal maneuver that the state of Minnesota is part of is successful. So we'll talk to June about this. We'll also talk to David Cay Johnston about this in hour 2 as well. I want to shout out a couple of quick, still waiting on my Trump phone, says Jim Slade.
It's going to be a while there, friend.
Yeah,
and this is their new hoax.
Yeah, I wouldn't. They ordered it the day it came out. Apparently, there's never been anything like it. Yeah, well, that's true. There's
never been anything like this.
There's never been anything like this scam. Thanks, Jim Slayton. Very stable genius, Sean McIsaac, with $11.02 tossed into the big virtual gratuity jar. Very stable genie, a rough approximation of the word salad Trump had yesterday. Couldn't respond with a sentence when asked about immunity. Good stuff. Well, he's clearly losing it. I mean, he's clearly losing it.
Well, he didn't even remember when he was asked if, when should Americans expect the $2,000 checks that he said we will all get. He said, I said that? I what?
He got up in the middle of that meeting with Rubio. That's where Rubio had pushed him that,
Chevron note.
Get back to Chevron. He pushed him that Chevron note. I think you guys ran it yesterday. I don't know if you didn't. Yeah. He got up in the middle of that meeting and started looking at the construction of the ballroom because I guess someone had mentioned, such and such is going on, or it was just the oddest thing. For whatever reason, he got up and he got to the window and he looked out over the East Wing where it used to be, and he goes, "Oh, that's the ballroom construction," or whatever he said. Whatever a demented elderly man who doesn't belong in the Oval Office would say. And then he ambled back to his chair and said, "I guess that was an odd time to look out that it was." Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, it was definitely weird. Super sticker from Romania Animal Rescue. Come on, Romania Animal Rescue. $20 into the game. Thank you very much. It's cool. I don't, you may wonder why we make a big deal. I don't think too many do, but, YouTube revenue, particularly on political shows like this one, is down. So we really appreciate your support through Patreon, through PayPal. You can click through. There are live links to both under this video, under all our videos, and you can become a monthly supporter of the show. But also, to this point, I make a big deal out of people who throw in super stickers and super chats because that's really what sustains us. So it's a weird thing. It's like we're busking at the subway or something, but it's a weird thing. Michelle Crocker said, "What's his fixation on Greenland? Is he looking for a new ski resort?" Now, I don't know if there are many ski resorts in Greenland, but he's looking for a new territory to claim. Right. That's what Trump is about. It's about ego. It's about claim. That's why he posted the meme of himself as the ruler of Venezuela. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah. So he's big on that. I think it's not about, of course, you can argue Greenland has minerals and Greenland has mineable treasures that the Americans could want. But the security, which is kind of the way they're playing it, is not really a legitimate area that one should be concerned with, because you could move as many American military in there as you wanted. I mean, the treaty allows the Americans wide berth when it comes to military.
When the end of the world comes, Greenland has that whole big underground habitat for everyone. Did you see the movie Greenland? Did you see that movie?
I didn't see it.
I don't know if they really have an underground habitat, but supposedly that's where, most of the people in that region flee to go into this giant underground bunker to survive the end of the world. So that must be why we're focusing on Greenland.
Yeah. Who knew? I mean, maybe it's true. Jay Andrew says, support independent media. Mark, we will always support you and your team. Come on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay, and a big shout out to you. Tony is here today, everybody. Pretty exciting always when Tony is with us. He works us into his 11 jobs, and he is, what is the word, Tony? You want to get into this Minnesota thing? I'll step back. I want people to be able to hear and see the latest move, and then we'll discuss this among other things when it comes to ICE as we continue.
The Mark Thompson Show.
And so it is that Minnesota has decided that maybe the way to turn down the volume on this ICE maneuver is to sue for the removal of ICE, suing after the murder of a Minnesotan at the hands of an ICE, I'll use the word agent. These are conscripted people who are given bonuses and big money for thuggish, brutish behavior. This is the crudest, most aggressive, most untrained mass of miscreants and despicable souls that I've ever seen turned loose on the streets of America. They are not bound by the same standards and training that law enforcement is, that typical police officers are. We talk about law enforcement kind of as an umbrella thing, so we refer to them in this sort of law enforcement category, but the reality is they haven't been trained in de-escalating situations. I don't know if they've been trained at all. Great to see you. Here's your utility belt, your gun, your pepper spray, your cuffs.
Your $50,000 bonus for joining up. Mm-hmm.
There is incredible economic incentive, and then take a really bad attitude and get it out there. And now 7 of you can go arrest some worker at a Target store. Here is what the state of Minnesota is doing about it.
This morning, the states of Minnesota and Illinois taking DHS to court amid a surge of thousands of immigration officers that officials are calling a federal invasion.
We are not asking ICE not to do ICE things. We are asking this federal government to stop the unconstitutional conduct that is invading our streets each and every day. You've seen the videos. At times, there are as many as 50 agents arresting one person. The scale is wildly disproportionate and it has nothing to do with keeping people safe.
Minnesota accusing DHS agents of engaging in unconstitutional stops and arrests, brandishing weapons, and dragging people out of places like schools and hospitals. Federal agents firing tear gas Monday to clear demonstrators after agents were involved in a car crash.
This has to stop. It just has to stop.
Officials in Illinois also calling for a stop to the, quote, turmoil and climate of fear.
The repeated invasions of private property, wrongful arrests, illegal interrogations, and violent confrontations have not made our city or state safer.
The Trump administration pushing back, arguing that the federal government is protecting the American people. The lawsuits coming nearly a week after disturbing cell phone video shows an agent shot and killed 37-year-old mom Renee Good.
And the Hennepin County attorney tells me that they are moving forward with their criminal investigation into that deadly ICE shooting, despite federal authorities blocking access to key evidence in this case. They do expect to make a decision at some point on whether to charge that ICE agent involved.
Thank you, Tony, for that one. That was a great wrap package on what's happening and the attitude of lawmakers and community leaders in Minnesota. So
Thanks,
I
Tony.
appreciate that. Yeah, I also think that last element is important. And on this, I could even point to our favorite Oyer lawyer, Liz Oyer, who talks about the fact that the idea somehow that the federal government won't investigate this shooting of an American on the streets of Minnesota by this ICE officer, except to investigate her, the victim, is a kind of grotesque Alice in Wonderland view of this. But it reveals the lawlessness with which this administration and regime continues. Play me a little bit of Liz, if you would, please, Tony.
Hey, everybody. There's some important news about the investigation of Renee Good's murder that is not getting the attention it deserves, so please listen and share. I'm Liz Oyer, the former pardon attorney for the Department of Justice. CBS News is reporting that the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division has refused to investigate the shooting of Renee Good by ICE agent Jonathan Ross. This is a huge deal, and here's why. The Civil Rights Division is the part of the Justice Department that is responsible for prosecuting officers who use excessive force against citizens. The Civil Rights Division actually has a special unit called the Criminal Section, whose whole purpose is to investigate and prosecute misconduct by law enforcement officers, including shootings of civilians. Lawyers from the Civil Rights Division led the federal prosecutions of the officers who killed George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many others. According to its website, the Civil Rights Division vigorously investigates constitutional violations by law enforcement officers. And, quote, in every case, the ultimate goal of the criminal section is to ensure that allegations are thoroughly and fairly investigated, that acts constituting federal criminal civil rights violations are sufficiently remedied, and that the rights of victims are vindicated. But not for Renee Good. In her case, the Civil Rights Division has decided not to investigate at all. Here's what CBS News reported on January 9th, and I'm quoting. Prosecutors in the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division were told that they will not play a role in the ongoing investigation. Leadership in the Civil Rights Division informed staff in the division's criminal section that there would not be an investigation. Normally, after a high-profile incident involving a fatal shooting by an officer, attorneys from the criminal section fly out to the scene. Multiple career prosecutors offered to do so in this case, but they were told not to do so. When asked why, the Justice Department declined to comment. So who made this decision? Well, the Civil Rights Division is led by a woman named Harmeet Dillon. She is a former personal attorney for Donald Trump, as well as an election denier and a conspiracy theorist. The Senate confirmed her in April by a vote of 52 to 45. Under her leadership, the Civil Rights Division has not prosecuted any of the egregious misconduct by ICE agents that we have seen around the country. So here's what you can do. Share this information. Tell your elected reps we demand a full investigation, and tell them we want Harmeet Dillon out of DOJ.
There you have it. I mean, that just states it so clearly, I think. And on the heels of this, 6 federal prosecutors in Minnesota resigned. This in response to the push by the Justice Department to investigate the widow of the woman killed by the ICE agent, and also to what Liz Oyer is talking about, the department's reluctance to investigate the shooter, the guy who killed somebody on the streets of Minnesota. You don't think that guy should be investigated at all? You don't want to know? We don't even know. We always hear about how he went to the hospital and sustained all these injuries, and my God, he was, close to her running him over. We don't see any hospital records. I don't even know that he went to the hospital. I mean, there's a lot of, they were ready to, with the great Trumpian BS machine, seconds after this whole thing went down. Anyway, 6 federal prosecutors resigning today over this entire incident not being properly investigated. On this, Kristi Noem, I thought she was questioned, I thought, in a very impressive way by Jake Tapper. This happened over the weekend, I think on his Sunday show, so day before yesterday, as we come to you live on a Tuesday in the U.S. This is a conversation she's having. She, maintains talking points, but I thought he pressed her nicely. Go ahead, Tony, if you would, please.
Even know what you're talking about when I ask questions as if like that's an assertion. It's a question. How can you make a conclusion before an investigation? And there really isn't an answer other than you saw the video. I want to ask a question about the rules of how law enforcement is allowed to engage when feeling threatened, per your assertions. Because I want to show some video to you right now and ask, what is the appropriate response for the police officers in this situation?
He's showing January 6th video. Those of you who are watching right now, you're only hearing audio, and those listening to the show, this is all January 6th. So you're seeing protesters who are beating officers within
officers being physically attacked.
Yeah.
By this standard, would any of those officers be justified in shooting and killing the people causing them physical harm?
Every single situation is going to rely on the situation those officers are on. That they know that when people are putting hands on them, when they are using weapons against them, when they are physically harming them, that they have the authority to arrest those individuals.
The president pardoned every single one of those people.
And make sure that they're getting justice for their actions going forward.
President Trump pardoned every single one of those people.
And every single one of these investigations comes in the full context of the situation on the ground. And that's one thing that President Trump has been so focused on, is making sure that when we're out there, we don't pick and choose which situations are and which laws are enforced and which ones aren't. Every single one of them is being enforced under the Trump administration, and the clarity of the law stands. And if people don't like it, these members of Congress and elected officials should go change the law and make sure they have that debate and policy change.
I just showed you video of people attacking law enforcement officers. Undisputed proof, undisputed evidence. And I just said President Trump pardoned all of them. And you said that President Trump is enforcing all the laws equally. It's just not true. There's a different standard for law enforcement officials being attacked if they're being attacked by Trump supporters. We just saw that.
This individual and these instances and these investigations all have to be taken and done correctly in context of every situation that is happening on the ground. So what we are doing today as the Department of Homeland Security is out there with our law enforcement officers, making sure that we're targeting the worst of the worst and that we're talking factually about each situation and making sure that we're bringing those perpetuators of violence back to justice, bringing them to justice and making sure they face consequences for their crimes. We'd love to have the partnership of Mayor Frey. We'd love to have the partnership of the Chief of Police and of Governor Walz every day when we're out there to make sure they tone down the rhetoric and they do the right thing for the people of Minnesota.
So you get the total denial there. I mean, I thought he did a great job with that.
She said it with a straight face, too.
Yeah.
I mean, not even a crack in the facade.
Last point, and then I want to get to June. The reality of the Department of Homeland Security may not be one that we are aware of. We see so much of Kristi Noem. She's the face of the Department of Homeland Security. She's the Secretary of Homeland Security. She runs it. And she is the talking head. So she does what Kim's talking about, which is stay on point. You can show her anything. I mean, that was insanely brutal evidence of there being two standards, that you're allowed to hurt police officers if it's in the name of Trump or MAGA, but you're not allowed to have any interaction with police officers that in any way can be investigated if your civil rights are being violated, if you're going against the MAGA nation precepts, in this case, that you don't want ICE in your town. And she just keeps right on point. Apparently, the day-to-day on the Department of Homeland Security side, if you really want to get things done, and this is based and corroborated on multiple levels by different reports, you can go back and Google this. There was a long piece, I want to say was September of last year, on the way it was configured, this Department of Homeland Security. I'm sorry, September of last year, meaning just a few months ago, right? That Corey Lewandowski, who is rumored to be her lover and certainly her advisor, he's not an official part of anything. So he's doing everything without background checks or anything else, that he's the guy who's making a lot of decisions when it comes to DHS. And again, the reporting is if you want people who want stuff from the Department of Homeland Security, go to Lewandowski to get things done. They don't go to Kristi Noem. So Noem is good at what Kim's talking about. Put her on those talking head shows and she doesn't flinch. And the day-to-day may be done indeed by somebody else. Regardless, ICE is out of control. It has a supercharged budget. It has no standard, as we can see, for the hiring of these officers. And it is replete with examples of intense, aggressive, brutal, gratuitous cruelty. So we go. All right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I am excited about welcoming a guest. She is a familiar guest. I think she was here once or twice before, but she certainly will steer right into what is a tremendous amount of news on this day. She's a ninja when it comes to politics, when it comes to economics, when it comes to the law. How about it, Professor June Carbone? Professor, how are you?
Thank you. Delighted to be here. Not so delighted about what's happening in Minnesota, but
no, exactly. And we have a poll up. Should a state be able to sue the federal government over an ICE shooting? And overwhelmingly, our audience so far feels the answer is yes. And we'll have a follow-up poll after that next hour. You are there in Minnesota. I mean, that's sort of where you teach, and that's where you are a fabric of that culture and that landscape. I wonder if you could speak to this, and then the question on a state suing the feds to stop something along the lines of what we're seeing with ICE.
Well, let me say a little bit about Minnesota. My husband and I have been here for 12 years now. We look out our window, what we see are woods and snow. I took up skiing only after I moved here, and regret that with climate change, it's not cold enough to count on being able to ski all winter. But this is also a different place in terms of the fabric of society. The ethos is Scandinavian. People are polite. It is simultaneously a wealthy state with less in the way of glaring inequality than many other places you could go in the country that is as well off as Minnesota. It is civil. I have gone to the No Kings protests. There are women in their 90s in wheelchairs who are proud to be there. And the protesters look out for each other. Yes, they're angry, but they're angry in a Minnesota nice way. They have edgy posters. They are not blocking traffic. And when you look at this, when you look at the state, this sense of outrage about this is palpable. I was at a law professor convention in New Orleans when this happened, and people came up to me and offered condolences to me as a Minnesotan. This is shocking. And I think we need to put in context why it's happening. What Donald Trump is doing is creating a private police force for himself as a mob boss. This isn't about immigration enforcement. It isn't about crime. It is about an invasion. And I want to emphasize, I have two pieces that I've written that I'm very proud of. One is on legal civil war. The other is about domestic use of the military. If you look at American history, what you see is that the founding fathers feared most is the ability of the president to send in military forces into the state to oppress people he didn't like. This is the fear that motivates the creation of the separation of powers and federalism in the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. did not, for a century, have a private police force. The FBI gets created surreptitiously, beginning with Theodore Roosevelt, but it really becomes a thing with the Palmer raids. Now, the Palmer raids in the 1920s are at the time of the second rise of the Ku Klux Klan. Donald Trump's father was there marching with them in New York, marching with the Ku Klux Klan. The Palmer raids are the attorney general of the era, launched raids to root out communists at the time of the Bolshevik Revolution and in the years following. And the FBI gets created in this period. It's controversial. Again, there was always fear a federal police force would be spying on citizens and oppressing those they don't like. Well, Donald Trump, when he recruits for ICE, one of the things that Democrats are talking about if they ever get control of Congress is banning recruiting posters that echo Nazi themes, white supremacy, reclaiming the homeland, pictures of Donald Trump as though this is his private police force, selection for people who will beat up protesters, who will be violent and lawless. That's what he's creating deliberately. So our attorney general and the city of St. Paul have sued. And they've sued on a number of grounds. But one of their allegations that I think is important to underscore is the 2,000 ICE officers that Donald Trump has sent into Minnesota are greater than the police force of St. Paul. The budget, the big, beautiful bill, gave ICE more money than the militaries of many countries in the world, including some powerful countries. It is bigger than all the police forces in the United States put together. What Donald Trump is creating is a private army loyal only to him that he can use to suppress dissent. And the note is only really going into blue states and blue cities. So what you've got is the very definition of the tyranny the founding fathers feared. And this lawsuit attempts to fight it on several grounds. The primary claim is the 10th Amendment. The police power, police forces, policing was entrusted to the states by the U.S. Constitution quite intentionally. The single most controversial issue at the time of the founding of the country was the possibility of a standing military or any other standing federal force answerable to the president. And the founding fathers very consciously gave the states a lot of power and gave the president very narrow ability to use federal forces or state militia, the National Guard, in the states for law enforcement purposes. Foreign war is something else, but internal law enforcement, the role of the president and the executive is narrow. So I'm happy to see our state fighting back.
And there's Kristi Noem, and I guess that one of ours, all of yours, is on the lectern there where she's standing. Kim, that's some reference to Kim McAllister. Are you listening? That's some reference to, it's a Nazi callback or something, isn't it?
Oh, that's the outcry, is that it was one of ours, all of yours was something out of World War II when an SS officer was killed and Nazis retaliated. So I don't know if that's how she meant it, if that's, why it's up there, but it reminded me of I just saw that yesterday when Ms. Carbone, Professor Carbone was talking about Nazi references. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. The sort of the standing army that will respond to Trump, I think is such a great point. Felt that way right away, but I love the way you speak to the subterfuge, the idea somehow that these agents, whatever the hell they're called, they call them, I don't know, agents or members of this ICE crew, that they have a stated goal, but the stated goal is just a smokescreen for the reality, which is they'll be there to do whatever need be done. And we've seen the brutality and we've seen the gratuitous nature of their aggressive arrests, and it sends a message, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And I think you have to see it that way. I mean, one of the things Trump does, and I find it terrifying when I read opinions by particularly Samuel Alito on the Supreme Court. The only real issue is what side you're on. And he's doing that deliberately. It's act provocatively, lie. I think it is now a requirement to be in the Trump administration that you have to be willing to lie. Every word out of your mouth has to be a lie, and you have to be comfortable with it. And the lies are for the base. And when you say what characterizes the base, not all Republicans, but the people who are really, truly Trump supporters, is they want to stick it to somebody. A relative Facebook page day after the election was this. And that's the impenetrable base. That's who Trump is appealing to. You know, I talk about Minnesota. My neighbors, I live out here in the suburbs, as I said, next to the ski area. And when I moved in 12 years ago, they were mostly Republicans, mostly businessmen or doctors. And they were low tax, low spend Republicans. Almost all of them are never Trumpers today. The exception is there one real dyed-in-the-wood MAGA supporter, ran for state rep, didn't win, as I moved to South Carolina. But almost all of the well-educated, intelligent, sane Republicans never for Democrats. This is Dean Phillips' district. He's a former businessman who was elected to Congress and ran against Joe Biden in the primaries. Moderate. But you could feel this district swing from our old Republican congressman to Dean Phillips because of Trump. And that's what's going on. And I want to underscore one other point about this. So you led with the resignations in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minneapolis. He wants an investigation of the widow of Renee Good. I mean, this is horrific. So first it was 3 prosecutors who resigned. Then it was 6 prosecutors to resign. One of the things I want to emphasize is these are the prosecutors who were leading the fraud investigations. So we've had this scandal about Somalis. And, those investigations began under the Biden administration. And a lot of the allegations are real abuses.
Just as an aside, June, I don't mean to interrupt, but I do want to reference just for those, because you can lose track of the plot here. The reason this whole thing started in Minnesota was over this Somali fraud thing that you've just alluded to. Okay. And maybe you can give me, 20 seconds on that. The idea was essentially that there was a great fraud perpetrated, and it was from the Somali community.
Yeah. And I want to put this in context. So first, the investigation began during the Biden administration. This is the relatively nonpartisan U.S. Attorney's Office leading the investigation. These are the federal prosecutors, not the state prosecutors. And it's become an issue because Trump has tried to blow it up and blame all for all of it. Putting aside the fact that there is real fraud, it's obviously not all Somalis. I mean, when I look at Somalis in the Twin Cities area, this is a success story. A group of immigrants who have done quite well in the United States, who are assimilating quite well. But that doesn't mean there's fraud. I think if you were to investigate NASA and Elon Musk, you would find a whole lot more fraud. So
that's a great point. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to, but what I do want to emphasize is the cascading nature of the resignations. So first 3, now 6, the leaders of the fraud investigation, devastating what's going on in the U.S. Attorney's Office. So let's talk about some of the other stories you're not hearing about. Donald Trump has also disrupted the Southern District of New York. He fired Maureen Comey, the head of their sex crimes investigative unit. Who is investigating Jeffrey Epstein? These millions of new documents the Justice Department suddenly uncovered. Where did they come from? The Southern District of New York. Why does the Justice Department have them? Because the Justice Department ordered the Southern District of New York to send these documents to the DOJ. So they had them and they knew they had them, but they're not claiming they suddenly discovered them. But here's the story we're not hearing. What happens when the fraud prosecutors in Minnesota resign? What happens when Trump fires Maureen Comey? What happens when DOJ takes all these files? Well, investigations we haven't heard of. The investigations into sex trafficking and certainly investigations into foreign corrupt practices grind to a halt. Trump is dismantling the part of the federal government that works and the part of the federal government that holds his friends and perhaps Donald Trump himself to account.
Wow.
So
yeah.
the harm of this, I mean, the idea of investigating Renee Good's widow is outrageous. But the long-term effect of the dismantling of the federal government's ability to do things right is going to be with us for decades.
I want to ask you about, just if you can handicap it, then I really do want to get to what is happening with the Fed and the threatening of because your background in economics is more than substantial. I wonder if you can give me, I know I hate to ask you to do this, but I'm going to ask you to do it anyway. Handicap for me this Minnesota move, the idea somehow that you can sue the feds to get rid of ICE. I mean, is that on a 10 scale, 10 being, yeah, it's a lead pipe cinch to work, and 1 being it's a total waste of time? Where is it?
Maybe 3 or 4. But
wow.
Again, so let me set this up. I spent till 2 a.m. last night reading the history of the Insurrection Act. And one of the things that is absolutely striking about Donald Trump's use of the National Guard, before we get to the use of ICE, is that when you look at liberals, when you look at people who care about constitutional law, you look at the Brennan Center, and you look at what happened as Trump was gaining office, they were concerned about Trump's power to use the National Guard. This before he beefed up ICE, which Stephen Miller was talking about during the campaign. And they said, this is terrible. And we've read these laws, and we think Congress should do something about this. They did not say we should sue. The Supreme Court, within the last couple of weeks, has issued an opinion no one saw coming on the shadow docket that said when Trump sent the National Guard into Chicago to support ICE, when he sent the National Guard into California, he did not have the authority to do so. Why not? Because he invoked a statute that had a very technical provision saying he could only do so if federal forces were insufficient to enforce the law. Well, the federal forces, the Supreme Court has just held, means the U.S. military. There is no evidence the U.S. military is insufficient to enforce the law, but it's not supposed to enforce the law. So the Supreme Court in a 6-3 decision ruled on a very clear matter of statutory construction. Who raised this issue? Nobody. The litigants didn't raise it. It wasn't even mentioned at the district court level. A law professor, Marty Lederman, raised the issue in an amicus brief because he read the statute. So when I look at the question, what's Keith Ellison's and the city of St. Paul's, what's their chance of success? You have to start with the idea this is unprecedented. I mean, you have to go back to John Adams and the Alien and Sedition Acts to see anything as controversial as what Trump is doing. And what John Adams did with the Alien and Sedition Acts is mild in comparison to what Trump is doing.
Well, in fact, Trump has referenced the Alien Sedition Acts, and I don't think Trump can spell sedition, but he he's there with it. So he on some level knows his default legal moves potentially. One thing that's coming in for you is a question about, and then I really do want to get to the question of whether you can lean on the feds this way. Please ask Professor Carbone about Waltz deploying the National Guard to protect the citizens. Oh, that's interesting. Like that the National Guard would be deployed to protect them from ICE.
Yeah, I've been wondering about that and think it's a smart move. So Waltz was criticized with the George Floyd riots for waiting to call up the National Guard. And I think he sees that as a political mistake. I see it as a practical mistake. There are all these rumors all over Minneapolis about false flags, about people coming in from outstate Minnesota, tend to be more conservative, and doing things to rile up and turn the protests violent. Is that true? We don't know. We have it, there may be some truth. It is not the whole truth. We don't know. I think doing it preemptively is smart politics. Let's keep things under control. But doing it to protect people from ICE, that's the move. And I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the local attorney, the local DA to indict somebody from ICE. They're violating the law. I mean, this is like the George.
Well, you're waiting for them to indict, which is so, I think, effective potentially from the standpoint of sort of sadly the political chess involved. But I think they're waiting for one of their ICE agents to be, seriously injured or worse, and that will give them a bigger excuse to move in an even bigger, even more aggressive, if possible, way.
Yeah, and let me know just on the politics of this. So one of the problems with indicting the ICE officer involved is you might end up setting some very bad precedent. In contrast, the civil suit that the state attorney general has brought, this is a novel claim, so there's no bad precedent to set. I think it is grounded in appropriate constitutional logic. The 10th Amendment left law enforcement to the states. The statutes over the years have carved out narrow exceptions. ICE is behaving in a way that if our local police department did these things, they would be prosecuted. So, we have officers. I mean, we have a police officer in South Carolina doing a 20-year prison sentence right now for shooting Walter Scott in the back as he was running away from the police. It sure sounds like similar to what has happened to Renee Good, but we don't know. We don't have the investigation. So the Justice Department is saying we're not going to cooperate with the locals, with the state, who have the primary authority over homicides. If they're not going to cooperate, and if the Civil Rights Division refuses to even investigate the shooting, then the Hennepin County attorney ought to be conducting an investigation with an eye toward indicting. And there
for those investigative bodies to which you referred to be boxed out by the feds, we won't share any information with you. We won't. I mean, it's insanity.
It's outrageous. And so the question I have is, again, Trump wants the conflict. He loves the show. But he also thinks he gets to be the 1,000-pound gorilla, throwing his weight around. That makes him more powerful. Is he right? I don't know. And so I think the state is being cautious. I think the state attorney general bringing this, if he loses, he loses. The U.S. Supreme Court, there's a wonderful book out by Leah Littman, a University of Michigan professor, called Lawless. That's a description of the Supreme Court, and it describes the 6 justices pretty well on issues like this. So to the extent you have to create something new, however well-grounded in American history and the fears of the Founding Fathers and the Constitution itself, if it's new, I wouldn't bet on them. I'd bet on them slapping this down, even if it prevails at the local
I see. Court. Yeah, I mean, the new stuff will be consistent with sort of creation of whatever imagined or real precedent they need to find to protect this regime. They are scooping up, says Jane O., people going through the legal process, while also cutting immigration judges so they can never follow the legal process. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of your point.
Oh, I want to emphasize this. We are seeing what happened to Renee Good. We are not seeing what happens to people swept up in this net. I have a cousin recently passed away at the age of 47, 4 children. It's quite tragic. She had MS, multiple sclerosis. One of the fathers of her children was deported and died in Mexico shortly after he was deported. We have no information on what happened to him. And so she has children who are literally orphans, and ICE is partly to blame. We don't hear those stories. Even in my family, we have no information on what happened to him. They weren't married and they'd been separated a while. We don't know. And no, that's what they shut down on 60 Minutes, are those stories.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. Those stories are heartbreaking. I only have another minute with you. We've sort of been, look, you're in Minnesota. You're such a ninja when it comes to these things. I really wanted to get your thoughts on this Minnesota pivot, and I like that you've handicapped it for us. Sadly, its success is likely not so great. But that said, and having spoken about that, I want to just pivot to the other move that Trump is making. It's an economic one, and your background in that area is so very strong. So he's pressing the Fed by sort of shaking down the head of the Fed, Jerome Powell, and he's shaking him down in this mafioso way, to open an investigation that will likely lead to an indictment. Perjury, I think, is at least the thin veil of reasoning. But can you speak to this?
Sure. First, I think Jerome Powell has fought back more effectively than most folks. He has come out immediately and said this is nonsense. He's not going on the defensive. He's saying Trump wants lower interest rates. They're bad he didn't say they're bad for the economy. He said they interfere with the independence of the Fed. That's what this is all about. I'm not going to worry about it. And he got a bipartisan cast of former members of the Fed, former Fed chairs, economists, a variety of mainstream economic establishment of the U.S. to back him up.
And internationally, by the way. Yeah.
But I want to underscore where this is going. So I said, I teach family law. I said to my class, I talk about financial booms and busts, and I'm predicting a bust. And the students want to know when. And I said, in time for the final, there's got to be something dramatic, something dramatic that happens to the economy for my exam. But what I am closely watching is Trump's taking off all the guardrails. What happens when you take off all the guardrails? Well, Bill will tell you, my husband, Bill Black, will tell you the savings loan crisis is a product of stupid deregulation in the early 80s. The great financial crisis is a product of taking the regulators off the beat. Trump is doing this on steroids. What I'm watching very closely is the financing of AI. Not is AI going to succeed technologically. The financing of AI will take us down first. And what the big tech firms are doing. Google is financing this themselves, but a lot of other tech firms are doing things like having new companies own the data centers, and then they get financing from private equity, hedge funds, investment banks, etc. If they go down, and they will go down sooner or later, because you're going to have one company, or maybe two or three emerge, and then you're going to see companies fail. Are they big enough to take the rest of the economy down with them? And when they do, will they take the global economy down too? And when that happens, the Fed, with the credibility and the leadership of the rest of the world, won't be there to save us. Ben Bernanke saved us the last time. Trump is trying to guarantee there will be no Ben Bernanke at the helm when the next crisis comes.
Whatever flaws there might be with the American system and the Fed, et cetera, it has really been a governor on the economy, to the point that other nations and other investment pools have come to a certain solidity that they find in the American economy. And now you really, I think, increasingly find an economy that reminds me of sort of like one of those third world dictatorial economies, not so unlike Maduro. You know what I mean? Where your economy is just whatever the dictator wants it to be. It's not a good place for investment. It's not a good place for business. And sort of again, as I say, the solid nature of America historically from an economic standpoint,
That's right. I've been reading John Kenneth Galbraith about the 50s and 60s, and he has an ode to the committee. He celebrated American capitalism in the middle of the 20th century. And his ode to the committee is, you really get better decision making if you have people with different viewpoints in the room. Trump believes in decision making that he has wild impulses in the middle of the night, and he has henchmen who implement them. And that's a stupid way to run the world, to run a war, to run the United States. Trump is Putin's dream, somebody dismantling what works in the United States and making all of us worse off.
Here, here. Professor June Carbone, thank you. I'm going to have a link to your books. You've done a few books, Fair Shake, Women in the Fight to Build a Just Economy, Red Families versus Blue Families, Marriage Markets. And I look forward to future visits, and I always enjoy when I see you anywhere across the internet-verse, stopping through and hearing your takes. And I didn't even get to Epstein. Your bottom line on Epstein is follow the money, which you don't really hear a lot of people talk about. So that for our next conversation. June, thank you so much.
Delighted to be here.
Yeah. June Carbone. So long.
The Mark Thompson Show.
She's the real thing. I know everyone standing by for David Cay Johnston, as am I. Just want to mention our wonderful sponsor. It's Coachella Valley Coffee. They are the makers of the best coffee on earth. Excuse me. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. It's all organic. It's ethically sourced from women-owned farms all around the world. They curate coffee, teas, and spices, and you can get tasting notes and tasting profiles off of everything there on the site. This is a boutique roastery. This isn't some discount joint where the beans have been lying around the factory. They sweep them up and put them into bags and sell it to you at a discount. This is all fresh crop. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, but you can get 10% off everything on their site, coffees, teas, spices, merch, by using our discount code MARKT at checkout, and you will be part of a very special club. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, MarkT at checkout for 10% off.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
Yeah, ain't it true? All right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
Thanks for being here. Tuesdays are a great day. Look forward to it every week. Conversation with a brilliant public intellectual, best-selling author, co-founder of DCReport.org, still so very prolific. How about it for David Cay Johnston?
Hello, Mark.
Look at you.
Great. You had my friend June on. Oh. And, even here in Western New York, we drink Coachella Valley coffee.
I'm
glad you put us on to that. It's terrific.
It really is great. David, you're just so wonderful. Yeah, June is the real thing. And Bill Black, of course, her husband, he's a friend of the show as well. David Cay Johnston, I want to ask you about what's happening in Minnesota with ICE agents and the aggressive double down they're doing. They're going to send even more agents. I call them agents. I don't know what they are. I think they're thugs. I think there's no, they're frustrated linebackers from high school who couldn't make the college team, and now they are getting great economic incentive to join this undertrained, if trained at all, group of people who are being turned loose on the streets of America. But this Minnesota move to sue to stop ICE from being there, I wonder if you could touch on that and that overall situation with ICE.
Sure. First thing your audience should know is that I've spent a lot of time studying police tactics and strategy. I've even written for police publications about these issues. And no, these guys aren't trained. They may have had whatever number of weeks that they claim to have had training with, but simply watching them try to take somebody down tells you that they don't know what they're doing. There are ways to take people down that can be very effective. These guys are goons. I think that's the best word to use for them. And it's clear that they have been taught, and this will be very important in the court case, that they are to have no regard for anyone or anything. We have cell phone videos, not just from Minnesota, but elsewhere, where they say things like, "We don't care. You're lucky." There's a pastor who, we don't have cell phone video, was said to him, but he says he was told in Minnesota, "Are you afraid now?" And we said no. They handcuffed him. They threw him in the back of an SUV. They said, "Are you afraid now?" And he goes, "No, I'm not afraid of you." And according to him, they said, "Well, you're white, so it wouldn't have been much fun anyway," which carries the clear implication that they are torturing people. And we've had some people describe things that legally qualify as torture while they were in custody. And I think the strategy here is incredibly obvious. We want to provoke an attack on ICE so that we can take much more serious steps like declaring martial law. That's the goal here. And Donald wants to remove non-white people from this country. That's just eminently clear. I did the top news program in South Africa, or taped in advance for it the other day. And it was one of the things we talked about is why is Trump sending a known racist man with well-described fascist views and a long history of attacking black people to be the U.S. ambassador to South Africa? And one of the questions I raise is, why would the South African government accept his credentials? You don't have to accept an ambassador. You can just tell him to turn around and get on the plane and go. But it is really crucial that people behave peacefully. A core tenet of what Gandhi taught the world, what Martin Luther King tried as best he could to replicate, is that nonviolence doesn't mean passivity. It means you don't get provoked into taking actions against the government. You have to allow the outrageous conduct of the government to reach human hearts. And the price for that can be very high. And you can go back and read the news accounts now that we have things like newspapers.com. When the decision was made to march on the salt works, literally from sunset to sundown, men stepped forward knowing they were going to be beaten brutally by British police or military uniformed Brits. And there were women there to provide comfort. Some of these people, they just got bloodied. Some of them suffered concussions and broken skulls. I hope we don't have to get to that level of violence, but we're going to have to record. Thank goodness we have cell phones, and distribute to the world what is happening here. And if you see somebody and you're in a demonstration somewhere who wants to throw a rock or something, stop them. Do not do what Trump wants you to do, which is to attack these law enforcement agents. Much as these goons aren't trained, much as they are eager to provoke, the utter disrespect they have for everyone else, don't take the bait. It's hard to do that. I recognize that. And I've been to more demonstrations since 1968 than I can ever remember. And I always knew in California that county sheriff, local police, things would probably go okay. The minute Ronald Reagan's California Highway Patrol showed up, you knew there was going to be violence because they would provoke it. And I saw them do this again and again. And by golly, that's what Trump
feels like. It feels like the CHP, to which you referred from back then, feels like them, with a multiple attached to it. I mean, these are really aggressive tactics. I mean, 7, 8 guys to, take down some Target store guy. You got that video? I keep asking these guys in the private chat to put up video pictures, but they're not listening. There are. Can you just put up the videos of? I wanted to quickly share them with the videos of the takedown, as David's speaking about the ICE agents. But what I did really get struck by is something that June even referenced, which is that while the expressed intent, and it does seem as though, and you see these guys dragging people out of cars, and this is just again, there's a brutality here. While the expressed intent is directed toward this immigrant community, Somalis, Latinos, etc., what Donald Trump has done and this regime has done with this immense number of people who are part of this Department of Homeland Security ICE crusade is created this army of those who will show up on American streets, and they're intimidating, and they can do everything from chill out an election, right? This is the Target store takedown to which I was referring.
Right.
They can suppress voter turnout. They can do any number of things, David, that it would seem to me can all serve the interests of this regime.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the biggest problems here is the absolute failure of elected Republican leaders to say, this is not America, this is wrong. And that needs to be an important focus of people all across the country. If you have a Republican member of Congress or a Republican senator, you should find when they're going to meet next with their constituents, if they're not too afraid to do that, which many of them are. And the first question ought to be, why have you not denounced the separating of nursing mothers literally from their child, the arrests of American citizens, ICE agents saying, we don't care. And we need to make pariahs of these people who will not stand up. And to those who listen to this show every week, I'm going to repeat something. I hope that there are new people who hear it. More than 1 million people died for the idea of the United States of America. And if you're an office holder who's afraid to speak up because you're going to get primaried or voted out, you're worse than a coward. You are beneath contempt. You're violating your oath of office. And I call you people Quisling Republicans. Quisling was the Norwegian collaborator when the Nazis controlled Norway in World War II, and who was subsequently tried and executed, as he well should have been. But don't take the bait. Do not attack these people, no matter how hard it is.
You're saying don't take the bait. You don't get into a physical confrontation with them.
That's right.
Let me just ask you.
That enables them to say, we need to have martial law or take away your rights temporarily. Donald has said in the past, he's talked about suspending habeas corpus. And habeas corpus, the right to be presented to a judge, is listed in the Constitution not as a right, but a privilege. A privilege. Privileges can be taken away. Lincoln did at the beginning of the Civil War. He had no legal authority to do it because only Congress can do it. Congress later gave him that power. I don't think Trump can get that power, but if he simply exerts this power, think how long it would take to get through the courts to get this Supreme Court to take up that issue.
Sure, and look at what they're already doing, David. These people who are detained, some of them are American citizens. They're shipping them off without any kind of habeas corpus, as you've just described.
And they're denying them medicines. I mean, what if you're on a medication? I'm not a young man, so I'm on several medications I have to have every day. What if there are repeated examples of people who were denied insulin if they require an insulin rejection or heart medications?
This entire detention center. This entire detention center thing is replete with examples of people dying. I mean, they're just not getting a lot of ink because of other stuff going on. Ryan is asking and saying the problem with these lawsuits, thanks for the €10 super chat. The problem with these lawsuits is they're likely DOA because of the supremacy clause in the Constitution. Can you speak to that?
I think at the district court or trial level, you're highly likely to get judges to issue restraining orders, temporary restraining orders followed by permanent injunctions. Then the problem, as the New York Times brilliantly pointed out Sunday, is you get to the Court of Appeals where about 1 in 3 judges were appointed by Trump, and they've been ruling with him, 95% of the time, overturning district court judges. And then when you get to the Supreme Court, well, they can say yes, no, and delay forever as the majority wishes. But it's necessary, I think, as a strategy. And I think Keith Ellison, whom I know, the Attorney General of Minnesota, he's a very, very legally savvy guy with a very smart team of people. And I think you will see them pursue this in smart ways. Secondly, federal officers are not immune from state prosecution. And that's why in pretty much unprecedented in my history, at least, the FBI has been told to cut out local law enforcement from the investigation into the killing of Ms. Good. But Keith Ellison's made it clear that he or the district attorney in Hennepin County, or whatever the relevant county is, will be going after these people. The sheriff of Philadelphia County, which is the same jurisdiction as the city of Philadelphia, and the district attorney have also both said, you pull this stuff here, we're going to arrest you, we're going to convict you, we're going to see you off to prison. And the states have authority to do this. The police also don't have to cooperate with these things, which they should not be doing, and that apparently has stopped in New York City since Eric Adams is no longer mayor. People are not powerless in this. And but it really is crucial. Do not attack these guys. Film them. And by the way, if you happen to see an incident, model the girl who filmed the death of George Floyd. There are all these videos that, they go all over, they look at the ground, people are screaming foul words. No, don't hold the camera steady as can be a rock, capture what's going on, don't interfere with the audio material by talking, and then distribute the material.
Yeah, the smack talking the ICE agents clearly doesn't have any effect. It only just riles them up more. So there's no virtue in that. It just seems that the aggression is truly a cornerstone of what they're doing. They really are shock troops, David. And they're there to cow a populace. And
well, when we finally get some state prosecutions of these people, there are certain things I assure you are going to come out, and you could argue this is speculation. It's just 59 years of experience as a journalist. They're going to turn out to be wife beaters, people have committed felony assault or at least been accused of it, people who have criminal records. I will not be the least bit surprised if 100 or more of the ICE agents turn out to be pardoned insurrectionists from January 6th.
Well, this is the thing that we said after that pardoning. You'll remember we said Trump is essentially saying, if you commit violence in my name or for my cause, I got your back. I will pardon you. And that's exactly what has happened. And in turning the Proud Boys and the 3%ers and these people who are J6ers, who the violent J6ers loose on the streets of America, now uniformed, now armed. You've got people who have really an allegiance to Trump and not much more.
If you look, Mark, at the videos from the many different people who shot them of the murder of Miss Good, there are a couple of striking things. One of them is that the car is clearly pulling away. Another
Tony,
is
go ahead and put that up there. Thank you.
She's not a troublemaker. She says, I'm not happy with you, dude. That she is in her neighborhood. This isn't somebody who came, as they claim, paid protester. I've yet to run into these people. And traffic is trying to move out of there. It's unfortunate Minneapolis police, although there are only about 700 cops in Minneapolis. That's such a low crime rate city that they only have about 700 cops.
There are 2,000 ICE agents there, just for
right. Oh, plus they're apparently sending as many as 2,000 more.
That's exactly right.
She appears to be waiting in this icy condition where cars slide for people to go by. Because if you move your wheels at the wrong moment, you slide into the next vehicle and get a $6,000 repair bill. And also, he's holding at one point a cell phone type camera in one hand and a gun in another. That's not what you do. If you think you have to use your weapon, you use both hands to steady the weapon. These are short-barreled weapons. You minimize your position, and you seek cover, and you fire once or twice, and then you assess. You don't go bang, 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 and then go effing bitch, that's what's going to kill that guy, by the way, in front of a jury of Minnesota citizens. Even if he gets it removed to federal court, once a jury hears that will be the biggest fight in pretrial motions for his criminal trial, is that it's not fair to include what he said after he shot her. And how the judge in the trial rules on that will be absolutely crucial to that case.
David Cay Johnston, it's just striking that these stops, these interdictions of all sorts, they're not accompanied by any warrant. They're not accompanied by any probable cause. They're explain to me how in America these kinds of situations and face-offs with people who live in Minnesota, people who live in California, people who live in any state in the union could possibly go down.
This is because we no longer live in the American Republic. We live in Donald Trump's dictatorship.
So warrants aren't required. Warrants
not by Donald Trump. Now later things will be thrown out. Cases will be dismissed. People will be returned to the country, hopefully, if they haven't died in some place like Secot, which is a death camp. Let's be clear. It's a death camp. But all those things take time, and the process takes time. And the way to speed this along is that people need to really go after the Republican, especially senators who are up for election this year, and Republican House members. People need to engage in lawful but nonviolent tactics. So we've had, for example, people make noise at night outside of hotels where the ICE agents are staying. No criminal offense there, and the Minneapolis police did not act to stop that from happening. Local police need to be told firmly by their leaders, and we certainly saw this in the Minneapolis police chief's public appearance, that we're not going to cooperate in this stuff. I think they should be told, you're to watch, and when you see illegal acts by ICE officers, you're to act against them. You are to arrest them on state charges, even if they don't hold up. There needs to be pushback to Trump about this. Now, I just saw a headline. I just came from teaching, so I didn't have time to read the full story, but apparently during that 2-hour interview with the New York Times, they looked at some of the video with him, and Trump expressed some different viewpoints. I'd certainly like to see that. Of course, Donald is famous for saying the opposite in a single sentence of two things.
Sure. I mean, I think what you're talking about is that when looking at these, he sort of suggested, that didn't seem right, or that doesn't. You're suggesting that. I think this is what you're talking about.
I don't know, because I only saw the head about it before we came on the air. But Donald lives in a bubble. All presidents live in a bubble. You get outside that bubble, if like Lyndon Johnson or even Richard Nixon, you have 12 newspapers put in the Oval Office every day, and you pick them up and you take a look at them. Trump doesn't do that. So he's really inside a bubble that insulates him.
Sure.
And Americans need to find ways to get out a louder message about this. I mean, what Trump is doing on an international scale, is he is making us a pariah nation. He's doing to us what Netanyahu is doing to Israel, and what is going on in several other countries around the world. We're attacking our enemy, our friends. We're making love to our enemies. We're talking about invading other countries, seizing their assets, stealing their oil, and that the Republicans are just afraid to act. That's the most troubling thing. You know, my track record so far on Donald is 1,000%. I'm batting perfectly, but my track record on the Republican leadership and the American voters is terrible. I had a much higher opinion of them than they deserved.
They're scared, David. They're scared of physical repercussions. They're scared of physical violence. They're scared of Trump supporters. They're scared of MAGA Nation. The pizza, knock knock, we know where you live move works. It's being done on judges, on legislators. This is an intimidated GOP crew.
Yeah, well, be that as it may, be more like Mark Kelly, be more like Liz Cheney. Whatever I think of Liz Cheney's politics, and that not much, I respect her because she stood up for the right thing. And we need to shame these people. If they are subject to shame, that can be very effective. One of the new things that's happening with this announcement, they're going to go door to door, which is what the Nazis did to find Jews, is apparently not apparently, I've seen 2 videos of ICE agents pushing in a door and coming into people's houses without a warrant. If a federal agent or any law enforcement agent shows up at your door, do not open the door. If they say they have a warrant, say, hold it up to the window and let me read it. Slip it under the door or through the transom if it has one, or the mail slot. But do not, under any circumstances, open the door. And the first thing you should do is call local police and say, there are armed men trying to break into my house. They're right there, right now. They have guns and they're trying to break in the front door of my house, and give your address, because that will bring the local police.
And it has the additional virtue of being true. And the reality is that we don't know that they're actual ICE agents. I mean, again, this has been reported over and over in different instances go ahead.
I have one other suggestion for people who are watching this. Call your local police chief and your mayor, whether you live in a little town like I do, 38,000 people, or a big city, and ask if police officers are what they're being trained about dealing with illegal ICE behavior, especially breaking into people's houses and businesses. Police officers locally need to get some training. Federal supremacy is not a right to run roughshod over the Constitution. And if ICE agents grab somebody, one of the things local police can do is say, you got to identify yourselves to us because we don't know that you're a group of rapists and sadists who plan to torture this person, and hold them up and make a record as local cops. Record these people. Everything that you can lawfully do to interfere with them, you should do, but don't physically attack them.
Yeah, I mean, that's a confrontation you'll always lose. I want to pivot to the Trumpian dictatorial move toward the Fed chair, Jerome Powell. I see America as historically a safe place for investors. It's a political stability that is envied in many parts of the world. And as a result, it oftentimes brings investment here to this stable culture and politics that is oftentimes hard to find in some of the high wire acts of investment. You know, when I was in Ukraine for a wedding. This is now a while ago, 15 years ago, I guess. And I was being pitched on an investment there. And they were really strong kind of returns on the investment. You could see why, because it's such a high wire act. And
right.
That high wire act doesn't exist in this typically historically more stable place. So I'm getting to the fact that if you start leaning on the Fed and Donald Trump decides what the interest rate should be, and, you know, he's just another tin pot dictator like all the rest of them, America quickly descends, I think, into that world.
Oh, we're rapidly heading there already. I mean, the biggest beneficiaries of what Trump is doing are President Xi in China, who wants to have larger, greater China, including taking back Taiwan, the island of Formosa. We don't have any moral standing anymore to say you can't do that. Putin, who wants to put back the old Soviet Union's territory, at least. And that's been clear for 25 years. And the reason he wasn't stopped when he should have been in 2014 is the Republicans wouldn't let Barack Obama do what should have been done at the time. And if you're an investor, you know, why is it that all of the offshore tax frauds that I wrote about when I was at the New York Times were in certain places and not others? Why did people go to Bermuda but not to Cuba? Because you wanted political stability and you wanted a rule of law where everybody understood the rules. And Bermuda operates under British law. The Cayman Islands, British law. So if you put your money there, it was safe. Russia tried to get people to send super valuable assets, $1 million classic cars, $20 million paintings, to vaults it was going to build near Vladivostok. Who in their right mind would take valuable assets and put them within the reach of Vladimir Putin? Singapore? Yeah. You want to put them in Singapore, where there are huge underground, air-conditioned, supposedly bomb-proof, certainly waterproof lockers. Switzerland, where most of them are. Yeah. But nobody's going to put their money in China or Russia or Saudi Arabia. And that's what we're doing here. We're telling investors we're no longer reliable. The Chinese are now able to buy oil with yuan, with their currency. They had to get dollars in the past to sell oil. They will take yuan for their oil. There are other countries, and a lot of countries have been lowering their reserves of American securities. The U.S. dollar, since Trump came in, has been coming down. So, these great bargains, like when Jennifer and I went to New Zealand upon her retirement 3 years ago, we got $1.80 to the dollar.
Oh, yeah, it was
really
incredible.
well. It was remarkable.
I remember at the end of the Biden administration, I said to Courtney, we ought to really travel right now because the next few months are probably the end of, Americans' value with the dollar worldwide.
The number of working oil rigs, which is made public every week, it's been going down since Trump came into office. The price of oil has fallen about $20 a barrel. Now, you may think that's great if you're buying gasoline for your car. On the other hand, with oil in the 50s, you're starting to see already oil wells shutting down because many of them in America have to have a price of 60 or 70 or more dollars to be profitable. I mean, the oil's still going to be there someday in the future. And by the way, people should know when we say an oil field is depleted, that means we took out half the oil, sometimes only a quarter of it. It's just not pumpable anymore. It will
the
be
stuff
again
that's
eventually.
easy to get is gone.
Yeah,
right.
Eventually the oil will move underground just like water does, just more slowly, and you'll be able to get it. We have had an increase in housing starts, and if interest rates are forced down, there will be some more. And as June pointed out, if the new Fed chairman, who can take office as early as I think it's late May, just does what Donald wants, that'd be very bad for the market. The people who run big investments, invest other people's money and their own, they are not going to like unsound economic decisions.
Well, they've sent such a message through Besant. Apparently Besant had a conversation with Trump about this. Besant, who's a despicable guy, as the rest of his crew is, but
not deeply informed based on some public comments that he's made.
Well, he's spinning sunshine half the time, like just total BS. And of course, the Argentinian bailout had everything to do with his connections to his hedge fund guys who had bought big on Argentina. So that cost us $40 billion as Americans. But it's fascinating to see the Exxon executive who spoke. Remember, David, last week when Trump was getting together.
Not
guys,
investable.
Right. I got Venezuela for you guys. You can go in there. You can take the and the Exxon guy made it. Look, we've been there and thrown out twice, and we're not going there to put our people in harm's way. We said that the minute on this show, we said that the minute Venezuela was taken over and Trump was crowing about how American businesses can move in there, oil companies, and take over the oil fields, we said right away they're not going to want to do it. There's not one that was going to want it. Chevron's the only one that's been there historically, and they're the only one that's going to stay there.
Because when you make a kind of investment to do what Trump is talking about, this isn't some quick return flip a building. You're talking about 10 or 15 years before you have anything substantial, and therefore your timeline is beyond the lifespan of the executives. It's 50, maybe 100 years. And who knows what's going to happen in the future in this situation. Before I go, because I've got to go, I just want to give the audience one little thing you can do to help make things better in America. If you are in a state with a blue governor, a Democratic governor, they're about to put out their budgets. Call and lean on them and your lawmakers to put enough money in the state budget to replace the budget cuts to public radio and public television from the Trump administration. In New York State, where I live, we lost $27 million. That's $1.30 per New Yorker. $1, it's less than a half a penny a day.
Wow.
We could increase it to $40 million, give a bonus to public broadcasters, and it would be less than a penny a day per citizen. And a governor like Kathy Hochul in New York, who found a fortune to help the multi-million-dollar Pagula family build a new football stadium in Buffalo, without a roof, by the way, which is astonishing, found money for the Belmont racetrack on Long Island, found money for the utterly corrupt FIFA soccer championship. If there's money for that, less than a penny a day, and California has a Democratic governor, get on these people and say, make up all the money Trump did and pour in a little bit more, because the return on your money is fantastic. There's no return on money on a football or baseball stadium, an F1 racetrack, a soccer thing, a horse track. Those are losers. This is a winner, and you can help old people who are shut-ins. You can help the blind, who in many places the news is read to them over a sub-channel. You can help little children with children's programming that teaches them morals and decency and numbers and how to get along for almost no cost. So, call your state legislator, call your party, call the governor's office and say, replace the money that Trump took away and throw in 50% more. It won't be a penny a day. There are only a couple of states where it would be more than a penny, and that's because they spend most of their money on getting access as opposed to the broadcasting itself. So if you put it just in terms of the broadcast stations, it's a 50% increase. You wouldn't hit a penny a day in the various states I checked the numbers on. I didn't do all 50 states.
Have you done a column of any kind on that?
I'm writing a piece I hope will run in a number of New York State papers, and I hope to get it done this week about it, because it's that time of year when governors come out with their budgets, and this is big bang, little bucks.
So true. By the way, as long as we're talking about budgets, and I will let you go right now, but I'll just say I'm all for taking money away from the Department of Homeland Security. Democrats should be having that conversation now in Congress. Take that money away from ICE. This idea that, that funding isn't vulnerable, it is, and start having the conversation now.
And Democrats should start demanding audits and telling the Congressional Accounting Office, Accountability Office it's called now, that they want audits of every penny ICE is spending. So anyway, see you next week, pal.
David Cay Johnston, everybody. Bye-bye, David.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on, everybody. Thank you for being here. Smash the like button. Do all that stuff. It's free to you to smash it.
With your iron rod.
Do it with your iron rod. Why not? Smash it like a boss.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Helps us in the YouTube universe. And a big shout out to all of you who have subscribed. If you've subscribed to this channel, also free.
Big shout out.
I give you the big shout out. And if you've hit the notification bell after subscribing, I give you another big shout out.
Big shout out.
Yeah. So very, very cool. Thank you for being here. We've covered a lot of territory. There is a bunch of stuff that we do want to touch on. Let me just get to this. What happens when all these ICE thugs? What happens with all these ICE thugs? Says. Let me just make this bigger. I can't see anything.
It's Lala 9824. What happens with all these ICE thugs when hopefully this is over with?
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully a lot of them will be prosecuted and in prison. But when you say this is over with, I wonder about that. I am not I do have some optimistic, I know you don't look for, one thing if you're new to the channel, I'll tell you, I'm not blowing hopium all the time. I'm not blowing sunshine, telling you, oh, MAGA Nation is cracking now. Oh, my God. His poll numbers are really low. I told you that Trump would win. I told you he would win the election. I told you Latinos would turn out for him. All the stuff that you just can't even believe. I told you that. I got into big arguments with Jim Avila, the great, sainted, magical sage. So we're not afraid to sort of, have the brutal conversation here. But I also will say when there's good news, there is good news. And I do have kind of a take on things overall that might lead you to some positive conclusions about the future, and I'll share those with you in a minute. I was just doing some comments here that Kim was throwing up. So here's one from CC Ryder. If Trump wants to be king of the world, thank you for the $10 super chat.
Big shout out.
If Trump wants to be king of the world, in quotes, I'm sure the Titanic 2 builders would gladly oblige and strap his ass to the bow. Okay. Paging an iceberg. Yeah, this is, I read that, but typically I won't read something that's just not my, but you can post it. But and we'll post it, but we can't, typically I won't read that in the future, that kind of thing. €5 from I'm a Bilberry Muffin.
Big shout out.
Hey, I'm a Bilberry Muffin. You're a Bilberry Muffin. Let's toss in €5. Yeah, I love it. We remove Venezuela's dictator, says Harry Magnan. Will they please return the favor? I see it. I get it.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Harry Magnan. And how can Trump be concerned about Iran protesters, and yet the same thing is happening here? Yeah. Now the poll results. How about the results of the poll? Should a state be able to sue the federal government over an ICE shooting? Yes. Hold federal agents accountable got 91% of the respondents. No, only federal authorities should be able to, have control over the ICE shooting. 1%. If civil rights were violated, 5%, not sure yet, 4%. So 91%, overwhelming. We have a quick follow-up poll. This is a flash poll. It'll only last about 20 minutes. But Tony will put it up for you. And the flash poll is a follow-up poll. Kim, do you have that? Or Tony will have it for you in a second. So you'll have a chance to, in our flash poll, follow that up.
And here's what it will say. Who should investigate when an ICE agent kills a civilian? Should it be state prosecutors, U.S. Department of Justice, independent special prosecutor, ICE, DHS, internal review?
Oh, very, very good. Who should investigate? I love that. Thank you for that. And I have been corrected. I always like a correction. Don't we have a correction?
Correction and apology, yeah.
We have a correction apology jingle.
Correction and apology.
Thank you, yeah. I like the chime at the end is my favorite part of this.
Correction and apology.
Right here. Yeah, I like that last part. It's not euros, Mark. It's 5 British pounds.
Why are you yelling?
Oh, thank you, Gene. Or Jeaned. Or Jean Ned. Thank you for that.
Is pounds the same as sterling?
Yeah,
or
British sterling, British pounds. Yeah, but
okay.
I guess I saw I just thought it was euro, but I guess it's not. So thank you for that. Rest in peace, Bob Weir. We will forever be trucking, says Richard Delamater. Yeah, that was a big, big loss that happened over the weekend. Thank you, Richard, for the $2 super chat. And I have to say,
Big shout out.
I'm not a deadhead, but I know he was a brilliant musician, solo career as well as with the Dead, right? Did you guys talk about that yesterday at all, or not?
No, we didn't get to it, but we did have it in there. I think we may have mentioned it and then moved past it.
It was pretty big, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Dead were a part of the culture in a massive way, and they still are. And Bob Weir, I saw him with the Dead at the Sphere show. John Mayer took over the band, really, and is just wonderful with the way he's sort of reinvigorated the Dead franchise. Not that it needed necessarily a reinvigoration. I mean, it's doing okay, but I'm just saying, the live shows, all of a sudden, with Mayer running, it just had that same vibe, apparently. And Bob Weir was really heart and soul, right, of the Grateful Dead. I'm so used to seeing those young pictures of Bob Weir that it's weird. I don't associate with him with being an old man, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
But songwriting, rhythm guitar, and a San Franciscan, there with the primordial ooze of the Grateful Dead becoming, the kings of psychedelic rock, sold millions of records. He was 78 years old. And again, the band was founded in the Bay Area in San Francisco in 1965. It had a blues, country thing, rock also. And it had that kind of a mellow sort of, almost, I'm just going to use this. I know it wasn't literally this, but the way reggae carries you along, I feel like the Dead had some of that. You had a lot of, in the 60s, LSD and the rise of kind of an anti-war movement and the marijuana generation and the hippie culture. But the fan base around the Grateful Dead transcended all that, right? And the Deadheads, they wore the T-shirts, they wore the merch, and Weir was so much a big part of this, And Weir, apparently a great songwriter, and Garcia was this wizard of improvisation and gave it sort of gave the band an aesthetic, But I'm noting here, Weir developed a reputation for inventive timing on the rhythm guitars, chords alternately grounding and contending with the melodic chaos, it suggested, of the other instruments in the band. And again, you guys who are real Dead devotees, you probably know this stuff, but oftentimes when somebody passes away, you learn more about their musical style, their philosophy, whatever. So the only surviving core members of the band are who? Lesh and Bill Kreutzmann. Is that who it is? I think Lesh passed away. Yeah. So Hart and Kreutzmann are the last survivors. I'm looking here to see. Again, I give you guys credit for knowing a lot more about the Dead than I do. But it's a great kind of history. And Bob Weir was, thank you, Mickey Hart and Bill Kreutzmann. Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm looking at different screens. I have to do. Everybody's got their own excuse for why we're not looking at the right screen, I think. But thank you, Tony, for finding that. But rest in peace. And it's a loss to the music industry. But the Dead, in some reconstituted form, continue. As I say, John Mayer and kind of the Dead gestalt existed at the Sphere. The atmosphere was very dead. It was, the songs are all dead, and the graphics are just like otherworldly now. You know, now that tie-dye psychedelic thing just goes, man. Now it just has an infinite wonder to it.
It's part of our culture now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's part, the subculture becomes part of the main culture. So yeah, bravo. But rest in peace, Bob Weir.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, Tony's got the picture of the Sphere up with the Dead logo. It was a great night. It was one of the, now again, I don't know the Dead that well, and I loved the show so much. I could have turned right back around, gone back in for another 3-hour show. Just so wonderful. Tony's got these pictures up, and you see all of the movement, and they just, I mean, it was spectacular.
Wow.
Yeah. So there it is. All right. I'm looking to see what we have time for. Kim, I turn to you. You're kind of executive.
I can give you news, or you can tell us a little law and disorder, or you can talk about the Trump mega donors. I leave it up to you.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about a couple of things that are going on because I think it's worth noting. I touched on the fact that Besant is unhappy with that criminal investigation of the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, and he's told Trump as much. And I really think the other thing that's interesting related to the economy and to Trump and to messing with stuff is that he has reached out to Elizabeth Warren, Trump has, to talk about things that he might do to address consumers. You know, of course, they've dismantled the part of government that Warren worked so hard to create, a consumer advocacy part, a consumer protection part of the federal government. But again, he wants a new agenda to address, and when I say address, I put it in quotes because a lot of what Trump does, I think, is performative. You know, let me tell you, I'm going to help you. I'm on your side. Consumers, I know it's expensive. Let me show you how I'm going to bring down inflation. No tax on tips. This kind of thing was a great headline. It doesn't prove out or pencil out in a positive way. But anyway, he has this agenda to address the affordability issue. And he called Senator Elizabeth Warren because she made a speech about her own party, the Democrats, being too cozy with wealthy donors. And to have Trump talking to Warren's, I think, a real populist, or as close to populist as the American political system kind of will let you be, or certainly in the top 5. She's getting him on some level to consider this cap on credit card interest rates of 10%. So this is maybe a reach. There are aspects to this that, A, get pushback from the banking industry, which controls a lot of the world of Washington, and B, there's a question about the legality of this. The government just can't reach out and tell you how to run your business, but maybe the new government can. Trump does it with threats, right? If you don't do this, I'm going to make, investigations happen. This is the new shakedown. And it can apply to personal enrichment in the case of Trump, or personal agenda in the case of Jerome Powell, Trump via Powell, or it can actually pertain to what we're talking about, which is maybe this reduction in interest rates. Now, this would be a huge winner for Trump politically, but it is, again, here, as noted, for most of the first year of his second term, Trump has pursued economic policies that progressives detest. Dismantling the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's what I was talking about in the case of Elizabeth Warren. Cutting taxes for high earners. In the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, allowing Affordable Care Act health insurance subsidies to expire. His plan to offer homebuyers 50-year mortgages landed like a lead balloon and has been abandoned. Bernie Sanders expressed skepticism about this whole thing, about Trump's embrace of some progressive policies, saying it's not in line with anything else he's done. Here you go. Trump promised to cap credit card interest rates at 10% and stop Wall Street from getting away with murder. Instead, he deregulated big banks, charging up to 30% interest on credit cards. That's what Bernie Sanders said. Warren also said it. So far, Trump, quote, has done nothing but raise costs for family. He used his leverage to pick up the phone. If he actually wanted to advance some of these economic policies, he'd extend it further.
It's my understanding that it's only for 1 year, and it just happens to fall in the midterm election as he's trying to make himself into the affordability president. So
perfect.
This
so
looks
perfect.
very political to me and very short-lived. He's not going to, permanently affect the billionaire class. He's just giving you a little bit of a break, so it looks good, so you won't be so angry come midterm.
Yeah, it's so classically one-dimensional, which is kind of what Trump's whole thing is. So, from The Guardian on Greenland, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is going to join in a meeting between Danish and Greenlandic foreign ministers and U.S. Secretary Marco Rubio, Danish foreign ministers Lars Løkke Rasmussen.
Ooh, that was good. You
making
should
that,
get ding for that.
Yeah, for the new America. By the way, yesterday, I only caught a little bit of the show. I thought Chip was great, and I thought you were great with him. Chip mentioned Voltaire. He said, as Voltaire said, and then there was a quote from Voltaire, and I thought, wow, that was dingable. Any reference to Voltaire. Speaking after a meeting of the Danish Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee, it was noted that J.D. Vance wanted to participate in the talks and will host them at the White House. Rasmussen said that Denmark and Greenland requested the meeting to discuss in person the latest on Greenland after increasingly assertive comments from U.S. officials, including U.S. President Donald Trump, about their ambition to control the Greenland territory. Defense Minister Troels Lund Poulsen added that he would also meet with the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte on Monday. That's a discussion regarding security in and around the Arctic. I mean, if you forcibly or in any aggressive way were to take over Greenland as America, it essentially nullifies the NATO alliance. The NATO alliance, which has worked so effectively post-World War II, but again, Trump is just about, the headline of the day. And the idea somehow that you would take over Greenland after the treaties that exist with Greenland already permit you all of this wide berth militarily in terms of what you can do, it's just insane. I mentioned that at the top of the show.
But they have beautiful waterfalls. I mean, don't you want?
And they'd look better if that beauty would be better appreciated if there was an American flag flying over them.
Right, yeah. No.
There is trouble in paradise at the Justice Department.
What?
Yeah. President Trump, according to published reports, repeatedly grumbling to aides in recent weeks that Attorney General Pam Bondi has been weak and, quote, ineffective at imposing his agenda. This from the Wall Street Journal.
So rude. There's been nobody better at doing exactly what he wants her to do.
I guess you can be even more in his pocket than Bondi is. Trump's criticism of Bondi is apparently part of a new turn from Trump. He wants his political foes prosecuted, and he wants it harder and badder and more aggressive.
He was not happy when James Comey and Latasha James?
Right, Latasha, yeah.
He was not happy when those two cases fell apart.
Yeah. He wants the DOJ to lean in. Yeah, forget about Epstein. He wants what he considers a high priority agenda to be followed by these officials at the Justice Department, and to more aggressively, this is a quote, more aggressively pursue his priorities.
You almost feel sorry for Pam Bondi. Look at that picture Tony just showed. It's like she tries so hard,
Yeah.
I mean, what more can the woman do? I mean, she's everything he asks, she's trying. So what if she's constrained by the law and the Constitution? She's really giving it a go, Mark.
Well, she's not constrained by much, but I take your point that she's kind of feeling like, hey, what do you want me to do? I've turned over the whole Justice Department. I've gotten rid of everybody in the Justice Department who isn't a Trump believer. We did that whole thing about were the J6ers there on a picnic, or were they there in a riot? We gave you the litmus test that you wanted. Was the election stolen in 2020? That was the litmus test for everybody working in government, right? And so, what more do you want, Mr. President? Well, Mark Kelly is suing. He was suing Pistol Pete Hegseth. Yeah, put down that bourbon and read this subpoena. Efforts to reduce his military rank have angered, appropriately, I think, Mark Kelly. And apparently Mark Kelly, he again is a senator from Arizona, filed a lawsuit yesterday against Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and the Pentagon, charging that their effort to censure and demote him is unlawful and unconstitutional.
And immoral. Look at what Mark Kelly has given to the United States versus Pete Hegseth to the United States. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You've got a president who they call him draft dodger, or what is it with his feet? Something about his feet. I don't know.
He had the bone spurs.
Bone spur, Captain Bone Spur, whatever they call him. But here's Mark Kelly, who's served honorably, who's been an astronaut, who had something horrible befall his wife as far as political violence. This man who keeps giving back to America, and they're trying to hurt him for telling people to follow the law.
Well, of course, everything you've just said is so accurate, but this is the new state of play, that an ICE agent can kill you. And instead of this ICE agent lawlessly being prosecuted for the lawlessness associated with that act, instead, your family's investigated. There is no investigation against the ICE agent. Anything the government does against you is legit. Anything you do and anything you suffer at the hands of that government, even accidentally, will be ignored. And the government will be viewed as the virtuous party. And in this case, here's the quote. The lawsuit says, it appears that never in our nation's history has the executive branch imposed military sanctions on a member of Congress for engaging in disfavored political speech. Allowing defendants to punish a senator through military proceedings for his political speech erodes the separation of powers and gives the executive a power over legislators that the Constitution does not contemplate. They charge in this filing that the administration responded to Kelly's remarks, which, as you say, were perfectly lawful, with extreme rhetoric and punitive retribution. Hegseth and Trump branded the statements as sedition and treason. Their comments, says the suit, deprived Kelly of his right to due process. Pete Hegseth is coming after what I earned through my 25 years of military service in violation of my rights as an American, as a retired veteran, and as a United States Senator whose job it is to hold him and this or any other administration accountable. This is from, of course, Kelly's statement. He continues, his unconstitutional crusade against me sends a chilling message to every retired member of the military. If you speak out and say something that the President or Secretary of Defense doesn't like, you will be censured, threatened with demotion, or even prosecuted. Speaking on the Senate floor on Monday, Kelly said that successfully censuring and demoting him would give defense secretaries power over the speech of retired veterans. I thought when this all hit, here, I'll read the last little bit. If Pete Hegseth succeeds in silencing me, then he and every other Secretary of Defense who comes after him will have license to punish any retired veteran of any political persuasion for the things that they say. And by that logic, a 100-year-old World War II veteran could be hauled in and censured or court-martialed because he says something that Pete Hegseth disagrees with. What I thought of is the anti-war movement during the 60s and around Vietnam. Vietnam Vets Against the War was a huge, huge political protest movement. Vietnam veterans against the war. Vets who'd made that supreme sacrifice to go to Vietnam. Amputees, those who had been permanently scarred by battle. They showed up, and they were part of an anti-war movement that was super big in the 70s, late 60s and early 70s. They would all be subject to this Pete Hegseth nonsense. What Donald Trump has done is assembled a group of deeply loyal but utterly unqualified members of his administration who will do his bidding. And it's so grotesque and over the top that it just defies rational understanding. But it's sort of the world that we live in right now. So I promised you a little, and I'll just give you a brief word about the future because I have been thinking about it a lot, and I know that I don't believe that this is a crowd that concedes an election. They went after the 2020 election, as you know, very hard, and there were many more guardrails up during that time. They went after it legally. They went after it from the standpoint of, fake electors. It was quite a scheme to jimmy the legal side of what they felt they could argue was a stolen election. I don't believe that they thought it was a stolen election. It was just a way to retain power. Rudy Giuliani, I've got the evidence. I'm going to bring you the evidence of a stolen election, of the voting machines actually being manipulated. I have that evidence. I can't wait to bring it to you. I just left it in my other pants. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm in court with nothing. But there was nothing, of course. But fake electors, those legal schemes and strategies, and then ultimately a violent coup attempt. That is not a crowd that is going to give up power easily. Not because of an election. Now, I think they'll do everything they can to manipulate that election. I think they'll do everything illegal that you can imagine. I think they will try to manipulate these machines. As you know, Dominion Voting, the company that owns those machines, is now owned by a right-wing group that is pretty dug in. I don't know.
Super scary.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with that. I also think, as we've detailed for you, even just in this show, but that we've noted it before, the presence of ICE agents and the National Guard now in a far more robust way than ever before on American streets will have the effect of suppressing the vote. And so you have basic levers of intimidation and voter suppression at play, along with manipulation. These are all things that I think are grim and predict a continued despotic control of government. An authoritarian regime that rose quickly. It was forecast to rise quickly. Everybody who worked with Trump, who would speak on the record, said, oh, there's no question. This guy has these autocratic, authoritarian flexes and impulses that he wants to follow through on. Everybody said it. It was incredible prior to the election. But again, his charisma, his strength, whatever, angry at Biden, owning the libs, whatever it might be, the appeal of a strong man, I think, and, you know, I'm looking at you, Latino community, on some level. I mean, that I think did appeal to, you know, let's get America back in shape. It's a weird thing because the Latino community, of course, is suffering so much, but, you know, he did well with the Latino vote. But all of these things were predictable, you know, and he was propelled to power. Now, the only thing that I would say that offers maybe some hope is this. If you look back through history, and we'll get Timothy Snyder back on the show, and we can talk to so many of the brilliant minds that come through here, and Rothman even tomorrow. You see the rise of despotism and the rise of strong men, usually following a populist revolution or a populist movement that's very, very powerful. And initially, anyway, it's very supportive of the strongman. So strongmen rise to power with a populace that is giving them a boost. The Trump administration and Trump himself doesn't have that boost right now. The fact that he is losing popularity so quickly, I get it. The ICE agents, his own private army, they're powerful, but they're also very unpopular. Now, it may be too late. It may be one of those things that is so far out of the bottle that the genie can't get back in. But I would say that his ability to manipulate the narrative will begin to erode further given the trends. So his lack of popularity is all of a sudden relevant when it comes to his hold on power. What worries me is that there are those in the Christian right, in the Christo-fascist movement, on the Supreme Court. They're agenda-driven. Trump is a useful puppet. Trump is a useful player, corrupt, you know, easily bought out. They get what they want. They got the abortion stuff. Now they're going to go after mifepristone, the medical, medicinal abortion. They're going to go after a number of things related to God in the schools. The theocracy that they dream of is beginning to build. So they're all still in play. If you will, the fight for the soul of America, the way they see it, and that's a fair way to see it, that we're all fighting for, you know, liberties and freedoms associated with the soul of America, the America that we remember. These are all things that are still in play. And so even with Trump out of the picture, is my point, you have those elements that are trying to retain power. And so when you look at the next election, because we keep looking at midterms, we keep looking at that, yeah, I'm seeing there is a power play going on at the Justice Department and control of government on such a complete level for whatever agenda, again, Trump or Trump adjacent, that it gets harder and harder. But I see that little sliver of hope when it comes to Trump himself. His support as a popular strongman it has eroded considerably. So, Mark, please break in for emergency breaking news. Is there emergency breaking news, Phineas, that I need to break in for? Kim, I ask you.
I saw this story. I don't know.
I saw this story. Doesn't sound like emergency breaking
Greg
news.
Deckelman says the revised, let me get that back up. The revised ballroom plans were released, and that is
exciting.
True.
The second White House.
There it is. That's what it looks like. And apparently they're going to add a second story to the West Wing colonnade. The ballroom project is expected to include plans to add a second story to the West Wing colonnade. That's the covered walkway that connects the West Wing to the White House residence. Is that the place where all the
It's fantastic.
the pictures with the offensive plaques are hanging there, I think? Yeah. They think that the second story on the colonnade will help make the building more uniform, with the new ballroom being built on the other side of the White House, and dramatically alter the space outside of the Oval Office. It will match.
Maybe it's yeah. And that'll be the Saudi second story. Who's paying for that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they are.
Sorry, that's sponsored by Google.
Well, I love it. Well, it's very, very exciting to get these new plans. I mean, yeah.
It was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
It's pretty exciting. And I can also tell you that the other story that I was following is out of Minnesota, where it looks like 6 prosecutors now have resigned.
That we had that story earlier in the show.
Yeah.
I talked to David and I talked to June about it both. It is. It's true that's an abomination. What's happening with this investigation? The investigation of the victim's wife. I mean, it's incredible. We have a poll result for you on our flash poll for hour 2. We asked who should investigate when an ICE agent kills a civilian. Who would have thought that would even be a question we would ask? With increasing frequency, it's likely, in America. State prosecutors, U.S. Department of Justice, independent special prosecutor, or ICE DHS internal review. Here it is. Who should investigate when an ICE agent kills a civilian? 59% of you said state prosecutors. Only 7% of you said the U.S. Department of Justice. And 31% of you said an independent special prosecutor. 3% said ICE and DHS in internal review. I don't even think that ICE and DHS are doing an internal review on this. They've already, they've got their narrative and it's out there. But state prosecutors is a great answer. So is independent special prosecutor. Were there really any more independence to the special prosecutors? But I just don't think there's much independence at all. So, why do they always resign, asks Bill Silver, especially members of the military. Stand and fight, damn it. There is that fork in the road. Do you resign when something's going on that you know is lawless and immoral? Or do you stay and try to correct it? I understand both. I think in this administration, it's hard to stay and fight. They're brutal. This is a brutal crew. You've seen what they've done. They think nothing of ruining lives. So, well, I'm with that.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'm wanting to thank everybody who's been part of the show today. Thanks to June Carbone, and thanks to all of you who have chimed in today and been part of our show. We try to integrate the... Cheryl says, I was surprised that the Mark Thompson Show didn't win anything on the best podcasts on the Golden Globe.
Who is having that conversation?
How dare you? I think
Amy
that's quite an appropriate conversation.
Amy Poehler won it. I mean, please.
What?
I'm just kidding. She's really good, but still.
I think she must do a great podcast.
Yeah, she does a really good podcast.
What is it, Tony? What is it?
Oh, I mean, we all know who should have won, but the first one, but whatever.
Who was that? Joe Rogan?
It should have been Joe Rogan, the one who literally created the space for everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah. Come on.
Tony's a
Let's
big
just
Joe
be
Rogan
honest,
fan.
but whatever.
Yeah, let's be honest. We like to be honest. I thought Tony was
Hollywood gave
play.
Hollywood actor a thing. No, yeah, big surprise.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he could have gotten a lifetime achievement award, for that. That's what he should get. He'll get a PODDIE, PODDIE, which is the podcast award, and he'll get a big lifetime achievement award, Tony. So don't worry, your boy Rogan is going to be fine.
He's getting some pushback because he is taking a critical stance on the shooting of Renee Good in Minnesota and not going along with the whole, Trump, here's what we saw and here's the line that you have to spout. So, yeah.
Well, I think he should have said what he said about the election, which is that it was rigged. That that's the reason I didn't get a. Here it is. Sal the Shoemaker. It's rigged. Witch hunt. Exactly.
Joe Fish, Sal the Shoemaker, Joe Box, and Little Anthony.
Sal the Shoemaker's got it. It's rigged, man. Sal says, you mean you didn't have a... Sal the Shoemaker says, you mean you didn't have a fake elector scheme in place to win the podcast? Oh, you're right. I should have totally...
Joe Fish,
had
Sal
that
the Shoemaker,
together.
Joe Box, and Little Anthony.
Yeah.
We were so remiss.
Yeah. Is Joe Rogan going woke? The Surface Spins asked. By actually defending someone who was lawlessly murdered in cold blood by an ICE agent? Tony, is that a woke position? Don't put Tony in that position. Tony can't defend Joe Rogan. I think he's just saying that as a cultural, I know what he's saying, as a cultural influence in the podcast world, Rogan was a game changer. And he's right about that. Isn't that that's a fair summary of what
Absolutely.
you're saying, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. We need to nominate the Mark Thompson Show podcast. I've got to tell you something.
Thank you.
I really like
What?
I like Cheryl more and more every second. I want more Cheryl and a little less of whatever isn't Cheryl on this show. So I'm sorry that we have to wrap up. But I am so wonderfully grateful. Professor June Carbone, Professor David Cay Johnston, really great guest today. Tomorrow, the professor is what we call him. He's not actually a professor.
What?
He is.
Yeah,
He
not.
teaches classes,
John Ralston's not an actor. He does some teaching, but he's not an actual professor.
What?
I know. I'm sorry. But John will be here. And then we have any other guests for tomorrow? Sorry.
Yeah, we do. We have a woman that has founded, her name is Kelly Dietrich. She founded the National Democratic Training Committee. She's a Democratic strategist.
Oh, yeah,
Kelly
she's great.
Dietrich.
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
And then Belinda
I'm
Raymond
Shadow
with It's the Planet.
Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Please don't talk over Shadow Stevens, Kim. Let's try to keep it.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Tony. Till everybody's aware of us tomorrow. Bye-bye.